just give a quick introduction. My name is Matt Just. I'm a Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at VMware with the Cloud Management Business Unit. And I specialize in vRealize Network Insight and vRealize Network Insight Cloud. And today what I want to do is I'm going to talk about, in this section, we're going to talk about migration from the cloud or to the cloud in a multi-cloud world, utilizing vRealize Network Insight. So we have very different ways from a journey perspective. So when we talk about common triggers for application migration, we're looking at different, various different entities such as, hardware refresh, data center consolidation, org changes, mergers and acquisitions, and cloud adoption. So when we go into this, we're looking at, the big ask is always, so you want to migrate to cloud. What, how are you going to do that, and how are you going to come up with that plan, and what tools are going to utilize to accomplish that? So obviously we've got our CIO here, talking about onboarding a new acquired company, back to on-prem, consolidate DCs. And then we have our cloud admin where, we're looking at different questions such as, what are application boundaries? What are the application boundaries within our infrastructure? Which workloads do we want to move first? How much bandwidth and so on is required to actually do that migration? Looking at things like which application owners, will the application owners agree to the plan? And then also, how can we monitor the progress of that migration as it's taking place? As you know, with data centers being very large, many applications, it's not something that's just going to happen overnight or within a week. It could take months, and we want to monitor the performance because those applications may be running in a hybrid state for a period of time before they're completely migrated. And then being able to look at and be able to generate reports and so on. So what we want to do is we're going to look at how we can discover application landscape, analyze impact, involve application owners, run the actual migration, and then obviously monitor and report on that migration. So when we look at the migration workloads for the applications, initially we start off with our planning phase. So this is where we're getting into doing application discovery and analyzing the application. So we want to make sure that we understand, what network flows are occurring between the applications. We need to discover what services are being utilized, what tiers, what are the app tiers, and what makes up a tier within that infrastructure or that application. And then also analyzing the application so that we can understand the complexity of that application and its requirements, so that we can prepare for that actual migration. So this is where vRealize Network Insight and vRealize Operations, we utilize the combination of the products to be able to discover the applications and analyze the applications. Now, the next step is obviously going to get into migrating the applications. So this is going to be moving the workloads between, our on-premises data center to, let's say, a VMware Cloud or VMC, infrastructure, or even to the public cloud. So we have to, look at different infrastructure and planning, and with a lot of use cases and customers that we support, we're popular migration is utilizing VMware HCX, which allows us to be able to extend the layer 2 network stretch between our data center to our cloud of choice, and then be able to utilize HCX to do the actual application migration. And then following that, getting into analyzing our applications and securing them within their new environment, whether, like I said, whatever cloud environment they may been migrated to. So being able to analyze the applications, be able to do micro-segmentation planning, understanding communication between the applications, and implementing a zero trust security posture. And then lastly, optimizing the application, obviously within its new environment, monitoring it, looking at its performance, any type of configuration changes across the multi-cloud environments and so on, and being full aware of how those applications are performing, and also being able to optimize them. And again, we utilize vRealize Network Insight and vRealize Operations to be able to do the security planning, monitoring, and the optimization when we're doing migration application for workloads. So when we get into application discovery within vRealize Network Insight, so we're going to get into looking at things. We have various different ways that we can actually plan and do application discovery. So we can utilize what we call flow-based application discovery, or you may hear it called FBAD. That is actually where we're actually utilizing flow-based machine learning algorithms to analyze the communication that's occurring between all of the constructs within the application, to determine all of its dependencies, and also to discover what makes that application up, all the entities that make that application. So, this is always a big challenge when you're dealing with migrations. Is obviously, customers are looking at wanting to make sure that they have and understand everything that needs to be migrated, along with the services that need to support that application prepped for the actual migration and prepared within that cloud environment. So utilizing that flow-based machine learning capability allows us to go in and utilize, whether it's in a new environment or a brownfield environment, and being able to actually discover applications that could be 20 years old that they don't truly understand all of the constructs that make up that application. So it comes in very handy when we're looking at discovering and planning. We also have the capability of using naming convention based discovery. So we can go in and we can use various different names. We can use regular expression pattern builders and so on that are built into the network insight to be able to discover applications. We can also pull from ServiceNow CMDB. So we have direct integration with ServiceNow from the CMDB perspective, and then we can pull in the applications of interest from the CMDB within ServiceNow. And then we also have the capability of doing tag-based discovery. So if you're going through and you're tagging your virtual machines within vCenter and so on, or within, let's say, NSX, we can go ahead and utilize tag-based discovery. And lastly, we can also utilize security tags or group-based discovery as a mechanism to discover applications. So we offer many different flavors depending on, what the customer wants to utilize to discover those applications, what methods suits them, the best, and based on how their infrastructure is currently laid out. We offer, like I said, many different flavors that we can utilize to discover those apps.
Hey, Matt, this is Jeremy. I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious about the flow-based machine learning item on this. Could you talk a little bit more about how VMware applies machine learning, in this context?
Yeah, so actually that's where I was going to actually jump right into, and happened to be my next slide. So when we deal with the flow-based application discovery and the machine learning, so what we're doing is we're looking at, particularly detecting the application boundaries, looking at various network communications that are occurring. So from, VMs that are similar, we're analyzing and looking at things like, what type of services is the application using, like DNS, Active Directory, NTP, and all of this is based off of active communication that is occurring within the application. So real life flows that we're actually ingesting and running machine learning algorithms against to actually group these applications. And then that way we can detect the tier boundaries. We can discover, what tiers make up the application. What are their similar neighbors, similar hosted ports, also, access ports. And as I mentioned, looking at common shared services. So within a typical infrastructure, when you're looking at the virtual machines, as you see on the slide here, you've got all this communication that's occurring within the infrastructure, and you need to be able to group those into a construct or an application construct that is easier to understand. And that's where utilizing the algorithms to be able to analyze those flows helps us to take that and group that into the applications, as we see like a finance application or a marketing application, and then tiering those virtual machines into individual tiers based off of, let's say we're looking at what ports are being utilized, for like, let's say SQL as an example, or if we're looking at, application tier. So we're analyzing the various flows from the protocols to be able to also group those within the tiers and understand what their relationships are with other members in that tier or other applications.
I mean, it gives me a little bit of insight into it, but again, for a lot of our viewers that may be just coming up to speed on, the topic of machine learning and how it applies to network management, we're trying to differentiate, how algorithms and ML different from I'm just looking at port and protocols in the flows to do grouping, because I think in the past, we've had those capabilities with other flow technologies. We can do that process, but what is it exactly about the machine learning here that's doing something more advanced for us? Kind of like the Iron Man suit effect of machine learning that we get through this product that we wouldn't get through traditional means of just kind of grouping port and flow of source and dest IP addresses and things that we've traditionally done.
Right. No. Okay. No. Understood. So a lot of this is when we're getting into it's more related into from the machine learning perspective into dealing around really having the capability of doing analysis on relationships within the actual infrastructure, the virtual infrastructure and the communication, and being able to run patterns and simulations on the back end and so on to be able to learn how those correlate and be able to determine, again, for this specific use case, looking at application discovery. So we're not just, we are using flows and so on to do analysis, but we're also, on the back end within the product, we're actually running various algorithms that are allowing us to do analysis and simulations to actually ensure that we have a high confidence level when it comes to that specific discovery. And a lot of that is going to be, as an example, when we're doing analysis, initially we'll start, and we actually use a rating system from a confidence level where we actually go from like a low, medium to a high. So that way we can see actually in the stages that are, of the algorithms that are being utilized on the back end, as we're studying and modeling in the back end to be able to see where we're at. So if we're just, we just started seeing or discovering applications and we're at a low confidence level, obviously we're still running additional algorithms to move it to the medium, to the high tier, until we have a full confidence that we truly understand that application and all of its dependencies from both virtual and physical infrastructure.
I think what would really help is if there's a demonstration of this. I'm fascinated by kind of these types of relationships and graph modeling of data, and I'm curious if there's going to be a demo of this kind of analysis, either here or if you have something on your website that we could share a link about, because this type of analysis is very hard to do through manual processes or custom tooling. So I would love to see a demonstration of this analysis happen with the ML technology.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can do a demo. And then we do also have links and so on our website that go further deeper into the technology. And then we also have posted on our YouTube channels and so on various demos utilizing the machine learning algorithms to be able to actually do application discovery and to go even further. So if, based on time with the demo, we can share those links and they can be posted and they can be reviewed for a deeper dive demo.
Pat, this is Terry. Have a related question on this. How do you know when you're doing this discovery that you're discovering the real app and not discovering that, we're validating that this system is communicating with an external system out in the cloud somewhere and doing data exfiltration? So you're basically identifying malware, command and control, or data exfiltration as part of the app.
Right, exactly. It's a good question. So when we're analyzing the dependencies there, we're also looking at various things. So with the communication coming into the application, or in regards to we're doing additional things like looking at GeoIP lookup, determining where the communication is coming from. As we do that determination, we're also analyzing various things. So obviously, if it's a virtual machine, basically that running in the infrastructure, running outside the infrastructure, or any type of or service. When we're doing analysis, because we have hooks into things like into vCenter and so on, and other entities within the infrastructure, we're tying all that information and looking at, where does this actual virtual machine live? What is managing this virtual machine? Do we know that this is actually a really, an actual deployed virtual machine or service within the infrastructure? So we're also checking other things to validate that. And then once we discover that application within the actual application view, we're also doing a security planning, which we refer to as micro-segmentation service planning, where we're analyzing all those flows and providing that visibility to the customer so that they can do analysis on that and determine, do they feel that this is, some type of malware or, C2, type communication that might be occurring within the application. So we do provide that visibility into the actual discovery.
I'd like to see a real demo of that. And in fact, I'm thinking back to one of these fairly recent high-profile scenarios with security where data was exfiltrated from an organization to a VM instance that was set up in a cloud somewhere. And a lot of the stuff was replicating domain names and stuff like that to make it look like it was inside the organization. So I'd like to see a demo at some point.
Okay, no problem. So really quick, and I just got one more slide and then I can actually jump into the demo environment. So the last piece, as we get into, like I said, is we're moving into the migration. So we actually have direct integration with VMware HCX with vRealize Network Insight. And we kind of go into the various monitoring planning phases. So, obviously monitoring the infrastructure, the network traffic monitoring, and then we're going to look at identifying and analyze the application boundaries. Again, we talked about the various ways, but this can be based off of metadata or traffic, utilizing machine learning and other discovery methods. And then we move into actually building the migration plan. So Network Insight, as I mentioned, integrates with HCX to build the actual migration waves. And what this lets us do is, as we discover these applications and use these discovery methods, we can actually build out the actual migration waves, and they can actually be taken from Network Insight, the discovered apps, and pulled into VMware HCX to be able to build out those mobility groups and import them so that it's easily to add within in an automated fashion into HCX for the actual migration. So we're actually creating the workflow for approval. We're from business process by supported data. And then we're initiating the actual migration wave. So that's you're gonna see where HCX initiates the actual migration and network availability based off setting up the L2 extensions, and then getting into modernizing while migrating the assets. So this is going to be right sizing and implementing security once the application is migrated, and then going and kind of it's like a wash, rinse, repeat type process when we're going in and dealing with the application migration. So let me move over really quick to the demo environment here. Okay, so within vRealize Network Insight, and let me jump over to give you a kind of quick overview on the application discovery piece. So within Network Insight, we have our application dashboard, and these are going to provide us with our applications that we're focusing on within our infrastructure. And they're giving us a breakout of the number of tiers that make up the application, the number of members. And as I highlight over, I can see, members can be virtual machines, physical IPs, services, and so on. And then also the last time the application was actually updated, whether it was manually updated by the end user or automatically updated based off of utilizing discovery, again, utilizing the various different methods that we support. Now, specifically, when we're talking about the from a flow base here, we have the capability of coming in and we can define a scope. So I can come in and I can hit modify, and I can actually come in and I can do it by either selecting things like applications, by VM names, tags, security groups, security tags, And then I can also do my tiers by names, tags, security groups, or security tags. But then when I go under my scope, this is where I can come in and I can define, do I just want to analyze all the flows of my infrastructure over the last 30 days as an example? And this is just going to show me within my demo environment, how many flows, VM to VM flows, and how many virtual machines I have in my infrastructure. Or I can come in and I can define an entity where I can specify things like by cluster or data center or folder or resource pool. And you'll notice we also have the capability of running this within native AWS or Azure. I can choose by vCenter, a VLAN, VXLAN overlay or Geneva overlay. So I've got various different ways that I can actually choose on how I want to run the discovery from a scope perspective, along with the actual duration. Once I do that, the machine and then hit submit, it's going to start running the algorithm to start discovering the applications. And what you're seeing here is over on the right, these are going to be in my infrastructure where it's found 149 applications. So these applications here, and you can see we have a confidence rating. We have the number of tiers that we're seeing, the number of virtual machines within those tiers. And as I scroll down, you'll notice it's ranked from, it'll show like a high confidence level. And as it's studying the analysis, you will see here, I've got some at the medium level, and then some that are still going through discovery and running through the algorithms to actually, determine all of the dependencies. So let me actually go up here to, let me see here, some of these higher ones just to kind of give an example.
While you're looking for that, I want to congratulate you on not showing 3 apps and showing at least 149. But I would like to see like 500, which is a real scale.
Yeah, and we can absolutely scale to that. We actually have customers running, very, very large scale. I don't know, Sash, if you want to comment on that. But...
Yeah, sure. So this customer that I talked about when I showed the slide, they are right now running north of 8,000 to 9,000 applications, I believe. And we do support up to 20,000 in Verney itself, but right now we do have customers running north of close to 10,000 applications, different sizes. That customer specifically has about 90,000 VMs. So yeah, extrapolate itself.
Yeah, that was really the scale I was looking at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a lot of customers that are running in this. And this is available today in vRealize Network Insight Cloud, or SaaS offering, and in vRealize Network Insight 6.2, which is the on-premises version that if the customer wants to run this in their on-premises as an on-premises deployment.
So I have a related question to the one I just asked about the security and finding flows that shouldn't be there, and it's related to. Can I set up a fence around my infrastructure and say, let me know if any of the flows that you see are outside of this fence?
Yeah, so we actually have the capability of setting specific filters, utilizing, because we were built off of a elastic search engine and we can utilize various different queries within the infrastructure. I can go in and specify specific, as you're saying, from a fencing perspective, that if anything is outside of that fence, I want to be alerted immediately, so that I may look at that and say that's something I want to exclude. So we can run various different ways, and we can set various different alerting methods, whether, again, like locally in the product or via email or SNMP traps and so on, or even via API, that we can alert and provide that visibility. So that capability is in the product.
Okay, thank you.
And there are also a quick comment on that. There are 2 ways to this. One is ring fence it and then alert. The other one, NSX itself, as you know, drops flows because if there are rules set, right? And then Verney does capture what are those drop flows. The drop flows might be good or bad because it worked, or possibly because it's an attack vector, right? And the bad could be that the attack vector is trying to access it. So you want to know what those flows are. So you could look at it from that perspective as well, right? To see what are the drop flows and then alert on the drop flows.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to click and show that really quick. So,
Okay, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, man.
yeah, just to give an example. So like this is an application that's been discovered, excuse me, that has been recognized as 3 tiers made up of 6 virtual machines. And then what we do is to help the customer understand, what this application is. We're utilizing the combinations of like the names of the actual virtual machines. So this actual, when you look at the different namings, these virtual machines are called, for demo purposes, as an example, I just made up a name. So like NSX load balancing demo. This is app tier VM01, and then I've got VM02, and then I have my the web tier, and then I have my database tier. So by providing and utilizing the names of the virtual machines, this helps the customers understand, okay, I know what this application is. And I now, I feel confident. I see it's at a high confidence level. So now I can actually come in and click save. And when I click save, this is where I can come in and give that application a user-friendly name based off of what I want to call it. And then I can also see the tiers that have automatically been provisioned along with the virtual machines that have been grouped within those tiers. And I can come in, and if I just wanted to name this, the name of the application - app tier, I can modify the names so you can fully customize it to your liking. And then once I click submit, it's going to then save that application and move that over to our actual application dashboard for visibility and performance. And that's where I can come into that, like as an application, as an example, click into it. And this is now going to let me have the overview of the application itself to start doing that visibility and planning and alerting. So I'm not only looking at, just malicious activity but I'm also looking at performance, both in the overlay and the underlay. So I'm seeing the incoming traffic, outgoing traffic, how many flows are occurring within my application, how many countries are interacting or end users, where they're coming from, what makes up my application. And then I get a nice overview of the tiers. It's a 2-tier hybrid application where the video tier is running in my data center, the storage tier is running in VMC. And then I've got end users in my Detroit branch and my Rotterdam branch that are interacting with this application, along with being able to see the shared virtual resources, the shared physical resources, the underlying network components that are associated with this application. And this is where we're doing analysis, where I can come in and say, show me flows that are not protected. So we're actually analyzing the flows and determining, are these flows protected by firewall rules? Are we seeing applied firewall rules associated to these flows? So we can look at that, and I can click into any of these and see the actual flows and actually take the firewall rules suggestions and export them and import them, let's say, into NSX. We also are doing TCP round trip time analysis on the flows. And if we see those deviate over a baseline that we capture over a 24-hour period, we'll show an indication, as you see here, between the Detroit end users at the Detroit branch communicating to the internet. There's some flows that have actually gone through some degradation, and I have the visibility, and I can click in that if I wanted to do troubleshooting and look at that from a flow response. But from the security perspective, the piece I wanted to show is when I come down to microsegmentation, this is where I can actually see my traffic distribution over the last 24 hours specific for this application, what's east, west, north, south, and so on. I can see the tiers that make up my application, and I can choose, how I want to view these by VLAN, application, subnet, many different constructs I can choose from. And then I can see, as I highlight over each one of these and hit key focus, I can actually see the active communication, the outgoing, incoming, and bidirectional between, let's say, my video tier and my data center, and the communication that's going to my storage tier, which is actually running in VMC, internet communication, shared virtual, shared physical IPs with communication. And I can click into any of these and do flow analysis. I can also look at, show me all allowed flows. So this is just going to be flows. All these flows are allowed. There's no firewalls dropping them. I can also click on drop flow. So if I have flows that are being dropped, it's going to show me that. I can also look at all protected allowed flows. So meaning we see firewall rules are configured and there are associated touching the flows that are protecting the application, but they're in an allowed state. and then also the all unprotected flow. So this helps when I'm looking at an application, especially when I'm doing migrations and planning and so on, as to understanding what flows I do like all unprotected flows. What flows do I still have occurring that I need to do analysis on and implement microsegmentation on within my infrastructure, whether it's in the public cloud, VMC, on on-premises data center, full visibility there. And then you can take the, sorry, go ahead.
Matt, pardon me for being a little dense here. Can you define what a protected flow is for me?
So what we consider a protected flow in Network Insight, we can see, because we have visibility into the firewall rules and so on that are provisioned within, let's use NSX as an example. So I have a visibility into all of the rules that I have configured in my NSX, let's say distributed firewall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking every single one of those flows that we're ingesting that's occurring within that application and analyzing it against the firewall rules to see if I have a firewall rule that matches the actual flow. So I'm looking at the source destination and doing analysis within Network Insight to determine, does this flow have a firewall rule associated to it? And is it something that is different from just the standard default any allow rule that gets deployed when you first deploy NSX?
Okay, so
consider that protected, unprotected.
So excuse me. So protected means that there is an explicit firewall rule that permits this flow.
Yep.
Okay.
Then we consider that protected, meaning we actually see that there are firewall rules configured for that flow. And then the unprotected flows are defined as flows that do not have any rules, or if the default any allow rule within the firewall has been left in place, we will consider those flows as unprotected. And then that's where we can actually get into the security planning, where when I click into, let's say, the tier, I can see all of the communication, the flows incoming and outgoing out of this tier, the services being accessed. But I have my recommended firewall rules over here, where because we're doing all of the flow analysis, I can see the source, my destination, the services, the protocols. And we use a whitelist approach in Network Insight. So these are all saying aloud because these are actual flows that we know are occurring. So there is the aspect of, okay, I'm looking at all this communication within this tier, and I may say, hey, this looks like it could be malicious, and it's not something that I want to take and create a firewall rule that says to allow this traffic. And that's where I can come in and I can uncheck this before I export these rules and import them into NSX as an example and apply them to the distributed firewall rule, and then add my deny all at the end, specifically for this video tier.
Okay, so can I also do an analysis comparing this list against what the firewall rules are that are deployed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So
Thanks.
when you look at this, I just click the drop down. You're going to see that it's showing you the match firewall rule. So this is going to be, it shows you, in this case, the manager. This is NSX, the name of the rule ID, and then it's going to give you the source, destination, service, and the action that rule is configured for. So this is just a default, any allow rule that's left in place on this, specifically. So this would not be considered secure, and that's why we're recommending to implement a rule to secure this that's specific to this source and destination and the members that make up that source and destination. So you can absolutely see that along with the number of flows that are related to this rule recommendation and any other firewall rules that may be in place for each one of the recommendations. So yeah, we do all the correlation for you.
Hey, Matt, I work with a lot of clients, on migrations, and, doing the application and infrastructure dependency mapping is a key part of this. I'm curious, is there, there's a lot of the information is here. Is there an easy way to kind of export, in like a report basis per application, something that I could give to an application team that they could then look at this and plan their migration?
Absolutely. So actually, I just on the screen here, I just clicked in within the application. every application can be exported into either a PDF or a CSV format. And I can actually come through and choose which information that I want to include in my report, including microsegments and so on. The top talkers, outgoing traffic, metrics, performance, and so on the VMs within, or the Kubernetes services that may be running within the application. And then I can give it a name, I can hit preview, and then I can give that report to somebody, or I can email it. This will put it into a PDF format, the one I'm showing here. And then, you can absolutely do that. You can customize the reports and provide those. And then you can also share the application with other users that may have access to Network Insight to review that specific application. So that's another capability that you have. So the last piece that I was going to show here was within the application. So, and we kind of went into looking at the application discovery piece. Is we also, as we're doing application migrations, I mentioned that we have the capability of doing integration with, and I'm letting this dashboard build out, but we can monitor the application migration also. So I can look at things, what is my latency between my VMC and my on-prem data centers? And I can monitor, what's the performance level look like that, and set threshold alerts if I feel that we're, getting high latency that may impact that migration. I can also look at my network rate of my HCX layer 2 extension appliances. So I can see the performance of these, and I can, for each one of my appliances, to determine, are they within range of the throughput that I have available to perform that actual migration. And then I can also monitor the progress of that by looking at the applications that are still on premises that need to be migrated, the VMs that are already on VMC on AWS in this example, migrated and done, which applications are on VMC, which VMs are still on premises, and their members. I can also look at all of my flows going over my HCX extended layer 2 networks to understand their performance and set thresholds. And then this is where I can actually set those thresholds, and I can define and say, if I hit a threshold over 50 megabits per second, I want to receive an alert in this case, and I'm going to see the violation of 80% of the time. Specifically for this appliance, I was exceeding that amount of throughput. So based off of available throughput, I can receive those types of alerts. I can see my direct connect interface as an example, going up to or providing the direct connect between my on-premises data center and my VMC environment. And then I can also model out all of the actual paths being taken. In this case, this is a hybrid app, but it's already been partially migrated, where I can see the front end of the application is still within my data center, running on ESXi host, using NSX as the overlay, coming into my underlay networking VRFs and doing, coming through, hitting my direct connect, which is being ran on my Nexus 7Ks. And then as my direct connect connects into my VMC environment, I'm seeing the NSXT tier 0 routers, my tier 1 routers, connectivity all the way to my virtual machine that has been migrated to or into my VMC on AWS environment. And all of these are dynamic, so I can look at things like the firewall rules that are configured in path between the source and the destination, and then also monitor from a performance perspective to be able to look at things like if I want to check my direct connect to see, do I have any issues, or am I getting any alerts that's indicating that I have an issue specifically? So in this case here, I can see I had one problem where, and this was just for demo purpose, 39 days ago, my BGP went down, and these are my two direct connect devices, which are my Nexus 7Ks, and the state of my BGP on one of them went down on switch 2 here, and that actually, took down part of my direct connect. So we're actually monitoring the performance there.